Okay. So, we're here. I thought I wanted to have a quote at the ready to get it started. But I think I do have a quote here actually. And it's good for these sort of labels things. It is: the way to stop caring about others' judgments is to develop an independent sense of meaning within yourself. And kind of what that means to me is when we identify with something, usually our identities revolve around external things or things that aren't us. We oftentimes identify with things that are not us. And usually those things get criticized or insulted or made to be ridiculous in some way. And when we identify with that external thing, we take personal offense to it, even if we weren't personally being attacked. And so to not care about what other people think, you have to form your core identity around purely internal concepts, purely internal thoughts. And I thought very long about what exactly this means. Hi Feisty, welcome. I enjoyed playing content warning with you last night. I hope I didn't make too bad of an impression on you. I tried my best. But the concept of an external and an internal label, we're going to use label for this. Horrible? Yeah, I knew it. The internal labels are things that cannot be taken from us no matter what. And that would be things that we are inherently are by nature. So that would be our beliefs, our virtues, our perceptions of the world. -1 out of 10, don't recommend. Hey, that's about average for my personal rating, to be honest. And so in order to not care about what other people think, you have to care about the things about you that cannot be taken from you. In my case, it would be, I like to think that I'm a kind person, that I'm very truthful. And no matter what anyone says about me, I know that I am kind and that I speak the truth. And so I cannot be attacked on that front. And no matter what happens to me on a physical or a mental level, I will always be kind and truthful. And so I do not care what other people say to me, because my identity revolves around something that cannot be taken from me. Because it is purely me. And it's not like just one aspect of me. And when I say aspect, I mean it's like the quote-unquote holy trinity. You know, the body, the mind, and the spirit. So if one of our things, if our labels identify with anything that's outside of those three categories, we are inherently prone to being attacked and being judged and being torn down. And I think the best way to sort of give an example of this is like a sports team. If I use a sports team because that's probably like the least polarizing like the external identity that I can think of, because there's also like political parties and stuff like that, but I don't really want to go down that route. So if I identify as a Red Sox fan and someone else identifies as a White Sox fan, I think those are sports teams. So we will obviously immediately not like each other because we're part of different quote-unquote tribes. And if I identify as part of the team of Red Sox and you are a White Sox and we end up fighting each other, it doesn't matter who we are as individuals. We have already placed that label upon ourselves and we have already confined our entire beings to Red Sox or White Sox. And because of that, we take things personally. So if the Red Sox beat the White Sox, you'll be upset. I'll gloat over you. for being a better team, even though I personally am not part of the Red Sox team and you personally are not part of the White Sox team. Just the simple fact that we identify as that external force. Force? No. I'll use it anyway. Community, I think is probably the better term for that. So we put our identities on the external. Imagine liking sports. I know. I don't know. It's just an example. It's just a hypothetical. It's metaphorical. But it's the same concept of like labels dehumanize a person because a label is completely and utterly incapable of describing the true depth and complexity of a real human being. And that's why I don't like labels. That's why I don't like identifying with things that are outside of me. You know, sports teams, nationalities, political parties, even just like hobbies, I suppose, could be part of it. It's like if you are a knitter and I'm a painter and I say painting is better than knitting, then maybe you'll take offense to that. But there's nothing about you that should take offense to that because you aren't your label. Team Edward versus Team Jacob, that's another good example. You know, people get into fistfights for those things. They're like Harry Potter houses or silly things like that. You have approach with caution tattoo label. So you take the idea of you are someone who should be approached with caution, and you make that your identity. And so you then approach everything else with caution because you feel like you should be taken into cautious consideration. And that's just another thing that it's just a label that you put on yourself that is not you. Because you can identify with literally anything that you want, but the vast majority of labels that most people use are not us. Like if you approach with caution, or you, oh geez, and a whole bunch of examples at the ready, but they've very quickly lost. Hey Jillian, thank you for the hydrate. I'm gonna try to like finish this thought before I take a drink though. Let's say you label yourself as misanthropic, I suppose. You will then treat the world in a poorer fashion, because the world is full of people that you have labeled yourself as automatically not liking. And so you kind of confine yourself into this mindset and this perception where people are bad. And so you will only see the bad in people. And it's not because of you, and it's not because of them. It's just that the world around you is determined by your perceptions. And your labels determine your perceptions. And so I try to label myself. So this exercise I started about a month ago. It's a mental exercise where what we have on our gravestone is who we should be. And you will never go to a cemetery and see like misanthrope or stupid or lazy or even like something as benign as someone's job. Like so many people identify with their job and what they do for a living, but that can be taken away from you. Like you can just lose your job, and then what are you? If you identify with something that can be taken away from you, what happens to you when that is taken away? Now you lose your job because of COVID, or let's say you identify as being in a relationship and then suddenly that relationship ends. Who are you at that point? If you identify with the external, then when the external is taken away, you lose your sense of identity, you lose your sense of self, and then you spiral. And that's why people get so depressed and upset whenever something goes wrong in their life because they identified with the thing that was taken away from them. And if we go back to Lumi's example of Team Edward versus Team Jacob, if I was Team Jacob and suddenly Bella is with Edward, maybe I would be upset by that. Maybe I would have some sort of actual emotional reaction to the fact that my fictional character is not the one for this other fictional character. It's silly. It's silly. It's dumb. It's like not healthy. And that is true for all other labels that are not internal. And so this concept of I need to know what I want to be written on my gravestone in order to know what my highest values are. And I think that's the point of labels, is we need to know what our highest values are so that we can identify with them and act accordingly. Okay, now I'm gonna drink because my throat is a little bit dry. And so going back to what my highest values are is kindness and truthfulness. I want to be a compassionate person. Nothing can take that away from me. I want to be able to speak the truth. Nothing else can take that away from me. The only person that can take away my ability to speak the truth and be compassionate and kind is me. No matter what happens to me, no matter what sort of bullshit, no matter what is taken away from me, they cannot take that away from me. They, as in the world, the universe, fate, God, whatever you want to call it. And that's my highest ideal. That's what I want on my gravestone. That's what I'm going to identify myself with. Everything else does not matter. Everything else should not matter. My nationality, my skin color, my gender, my political affiliations, which I don't really have any. None of that matters. All that matters is that I'm kind, I'm compassionate, and I speak the truth. That's me. Everything else is just categorization and intersection. And it's just a way to compartmentalize me for other people's benefit so that it's like an elevator pitch. You cannot truly know someone. And most of the time, the labels that we use to describe ourselves don't even do any help sort of explaining who we are as a person. It's like you can identify with the physical. Let's say I identify as a man. That tells you literally nothing about me. That just means that you know my body type. That's it. That's not me. My body is not me. My mind is not me. They're a part of me, but they are not me. And that's the danger of labels, is because it forces us to identify with things that are not us. And I think I've said that a couple times, but this is sort of like the big crux of why I'm talking about this today, is people get so hung up on physical labels that they very quickly lose the important parts of who they are. Sometimes it's the only important part of who someone is gets completely lost in the need to label and categorize and compartmentalize, and I've got this group of people that I am a part of because of some trait or characteristic or interest or whatever. But the group is not them. And if you identify with a group, you take that group's problems, you take that group's goals, you take that group's glories, victories, defeats, sadnesses, slights, and you treat it as if you personally have been attacked. And that's not a good way to live, because you will always be attacked if you identify with the group. No matter what group it is, you're always going to be under attack by other groups. And if you're always under attack, you're always going to be miserable, and you're always going to be guarded, and you're always going to be looking for the blame. You're always going to be a victim. And being a victim is not good. You may be victimized, but being a victim is a choice, and it's not a healthy choice. And no, a personal experience with that is, my body has been ravaged by illness for about half a decade at this point. I am frail, I'm weak, I'm incredibly small. Like, I'm unhealthily small. I should be dead, just putting it bluntly. But I'm here, I'm able to have this chat, I'm able to smile and laugh and be content with my life because I don't identify as my frail, weak body. And the moment that I do identify with my body, whenever I wish I was stronger, or when I wish I was more masculine, or stuff like that, that's when the misery shows up. That's when I'm no longer content. That's when I'm not happy. It's when I identify with my frail, weak, victimized body. That's when my happiness is taken from me. And because the body is an external thing, I believe that. The body is external. The body can be taken away from me. The body has been taken away from me. And I identified with that, I became miserable. The moment I stopped identifying as my body, which, I obviously fall into this trap every now and then, and a couple of people in here have been victims of my desires to be a little bit stronger, a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. But it's just a passing thought for me. But some people, their entire identity revolves around their physical body, and they are some of the saddest, most depressed people I know. If they're like absolutely dysphoric about their body in whatever way, like dysphoria happens to basically everyone, I want to say, just in different ways and different degrees. But that's just identification with the physical form, and the physical form is a temporary thing. And so it's all well and good. It's all easy for me to say, like, yeah, just don't identify with your body. But we've been conditioned over the past 40 or 50 years that the body is basically everything. Like, the body is a sovereign thing, because we've lost the spiritual aspect of ourselves. People often identify with their intelligence as well, and this is like what is called a gifted kid syndrome, where someone is praised for their intelligence as a kid, and they all throughout schooling they are like, oh, you're so gifted, you're so smart, you're so like intelligent, you're talented, you're gonna do good, kid. And then they get out into the real world and suddenly no one gives a shit about their intelligence, and their entire identity is revolved around the purely mental, which is something that may be taken away from you. Now, if I identify as the smartest kid in class and I get into Harvard, and then I go to Harvard and suddenly I'm at the bottom of the totem pole because there are so many other smarter people in the world than me, like, of course my entire sense of identity is going to come crumbling down around me in like a spectacular, catastrophic way. And so my intelligence, while I'm still as smart as I was, the identifying nature of being intelligent is removed. Like, that foundational pillar of my being is no longer there, because I'm no longer the smartest person in the room, if that makes sense. So the physical is external, the mental is external, the spiritual is not. And the spiritual is our values, our virtues, our ideals, what we want out of the world, or what we can provide to the world as well. Thank you for the hydrate, Julie. Jeez. No one can take my happiness from me, because I am myself. I don't identify with anything that is external anymore, I should say, because I used to. And I, of course, like, no. I wasn't just born as this sort of like Nirvana Buddha sort of Gandhi type person. Like, this is something that's been slowly developing over the past decade. And it's really gotten really fast over the past couple of years while I was dealing with severe illness. But it was a wake-up call when I got sick, because basically my entire identity revolved around my mental and my physical forms. And then when I lost my physical form through sickness, and I lost my mental form through the malnourishment that I went through over the course of a long time, where I was like in a brain fog and I couldn't think and I couldn't say the proper words. Hey Chase, how's it going? I lost my entire sense of identity when I got sick, and so I had to rebuild it from the ground up. And let me tell you, that was not comfortable to do. That was not fun. But we've made it through the other side, and I understand myself way better. And letting go of a whole bunch of different labels that weren't me, and stopping identification with the external in my life, helped me so much. I used to be so god fucking awfully miserable all the time because I identified with a political party or with some sort of ideology or some sort of, I don't know, book club or whatever. It's like, it's the moment I stopped caring about that stuff is the moment that I became happy. And I wish more people understood that. And that's why I'm here talking about it. Because even though there's only a couple people here that are listening to me rambling, it's always good to get this out of your chest. You know, one person might be affected by what I say, and then they can spread it to their group of friends. So while my name may disappear from the annals of history, I'm hoping the ideas that I have and the ideas that I'm talking about, I hope those live on. Because I really am just a vessel for these ideas that I've sort of both come across and have come to while in my years of pondering life and nature. And not all of these ideas are originally mine, of course. Like, there's nothing in this world that's original. It's just repackaged or relearned over the course of time. That's kind of like my entire thesis on identity, is that we need to identify with our highest virtues rather than anything that can be taken away from us. So, half an hour in and I'm already basically done with my lecture. I want to go back to the identifying with victimhood thing. There is a quote that I found that I think encapsulates it very, very well. And it is, it is very dangerous to identify with a group that validates your victimhood, because then you'll never grow. You'll always blame other people for your shortcomings. And this is probably one of the more radical, maybe not radical, but maybe one of the more emotionally charged sort of views that I have, is, you know, don't identify with a group that validates your victimhood. And for a lot of people, that's all of the groups that they're in. Now, the political parties are always blaming the other party, the other side of the aisle, for all of the country's problems. Or they're blaming some, like in a war or whatever, you blame the other side for starting the war and for perpetuating it and whatever. But if you have your victimhood validated, you become blind to your own faults and your own shortcomings. And because you are blind to yourself, you are usually living life as a sheep, because you don't know what's going on, because you don't know what's happening inside of you. And if you don't know what's happening inside of you, you are letting unconscious forces control your life. And that's not okay. Well, I mean, maybe it's okay for some people, but I don't want that to happen to me. So I don't identify with any political party. I don't identify with any sports team or really any nationality. Like, of course, I live in America. Thank you for the hydrate. Of course, I live in America, and I'm proud of the values that America was built on. But that's about it. And of course, I've got a massive American flag hung up in my room, but like I'm not a diehard American patriot. Like, this country is perfect in every way. Like, of course not. No place is. And I'm not going to take offense to it if someone insults America, because I don't identify with the external group of American. I'm just me. And if you go like one step further, there's states, there's political parties, there's affiliations with like the alphabet agencies, the alphabet mafia and stuff like that, which I don't think I should speak publicly on the alphabet mafia. No, come out for me. I'm gonna hydrate. That's kind of it, to be honest. No, I thought I had a lot to say, but apparently I'm so good, or I've thought about this so much that I don't have to ramble too much to get my thoughts across. Succinct, yes. It could all be boiled down to labels are dangerous, and we shouldn't confine ourselves to our labels. Not identifying with a group of victimhood. Yeah. And it's hard to get out of that mindset. It's very hard, and like I don't blame anyone for being in that mindset. It creates excuses for not doing more. Exactly. It just creates excuses for you not to live up to your best potential. And, you know, while the world may actually legitimately be victimizing you, the moment you blame the world is the moment you lose responsibility for your life. To define is to limit. Yes. Yes, and there's a quote by Kierkegaard that I got today. It's like, once you label me, you negate me. And so, yeah, we are pattern-seeking animals. We love our labels. We love compartmentalizing people into little boxes. And then you take a label, and all those labels have stereotypes and implications that go along with them. But no matter how many labels someone has, that cannot define who they truly are as a person, because a person is so deep and complex that no amount of definition can ever truly come across. Now play game? No. This is just me talking today. Because, no. Sometimes we'll just, like, talk about other things besides what I originally had in mind. Because last week we spent half an hour talking about slurping. But, yeah. Especially the moment that I stopped defining myself as sick, I started to pick up my life again. And I wasn't letting the label of disabled dictate how I live my life. And while I am definitionally disabled, I don't see myself as disabled. I don't want to be viewed as disabled. And so I don't say I'm disabled. I don't believe I'm disabled. I don't label myself as disabled. Because the label also informs other people of how they should treat you. You know? It's like if I say I'm disabled, people are going to treat me a little bit differently. I just want that disability check. Exactly. I want my free government money. No. It's like if I say I'm autistic, which I am diagnosed, but if I come right out the gate saying I'm autistic, that's going to leave an impression on someone if I didn't say that. It's a different impression. So, and that government cheese. I've never had government cheese. I hear it's really good, but I don't know. They have millions and millions of pounds of cheese just in caves. You got it in your bank account right now? That's true. That is true. Actually, most of it isn't in my bank account. It's in my investments. Don't tell the government, because I'm not allowed to use that money for investing. But I did it anyway. They'll never know. They'll never know. Yeah. Do we have anything else that we want to talk about? Because I'm kind of done. Hi, Julian. Thank you for the hydrate. And I'm like no longer in the middle of a thought. I can hydrate immediately. Do you have a timer, Julian? Like, do you just like have a timer that just goes off every 5 minutes so you can redeem the hydrate? Also, how do you get so many points? Like 50 points every 5 minutes? You should not have enough to do this. The seal on my bottle is starting to break. I'm starting to like spill water all over my chin every time I take a drink. Just check every 2 seconds. Oh no.